3 months later, the company returns to Pebble Beach to hold its second retreat. Progress has been made. The first mock-up of the new computer is in the trunk Steve is carrying. But the flush of excitement that animated the first days of startup has given way to the pressure of solving actual problems in time to meet critical deadlines. The minute Steve begins to deliver his traditional sayings of Chairman Jobs, it becomes clear that the mood of this retreat will be different from the first.
Well, my first saying is that the honeymoon is over. All of those wonderful things that we got for just being are now sort of just old news. We are like every other startup. We've been a company now for 6 months. And yes, you could say that, well, we had a lawsuit for 4 of those months and we had this and that. But the bottom line is the world doesn't really care. What the world cares about is what we produce. We've been a startup for 6 months. We've been spending money like we've been a startup for 6 months. And in some areas, we've really produced a lot. We've got a lot to show for 6 months in some areas. In other areas, we don't have a lot to show for 6 months. So I hope that throughout this retreat, we tend to make sure that our feet are on the ground and we realize that we're going to be judged like every other startup from here on out, and that is by what our product is and how timely we bring it to market. Not on the fact that we're next, not on the fact that we were sued, not on the fact that we're really good people who had a lot to do with Macintosh. That stuff's irrelevant at this point.
What we'd like to do is step back a minute from the point of view of what's feasible. Ignore that.
In December, the group concluded they must ship product in 18 months and agreed.
I don't know, I mean, I sort of think another month's going to go by and there's still not going to be anything running on the sun that's very interesting. And another month will go by and there still won't be anything running. And it just seems like it's just, and I guess maybe that's just the way it has to be.
I think we're going to have to.
No, I forget about slipping in time. Everything after shipment. Just look to shipment. Marketing's out of line. There's too many people in marketing.
Figure about $250 a month for Health and Life. Before we cut the facilities budget, it's $1,000.
But that's not where it's going.
Money is also emerging as a problem. In return for 70% of the stock, Jobs has committed $7 million of his own money to carry the company to product launch. But at the present burn rate, it appears that that amount will be insufficient. The unpleasant task of cutting expenses must be faced.
All this other stuff that in the final analysis, we really don't care about that much is what's costing us the money.
There are not million-dollar buckets out there to identify that we need spending cuts. There's lots and lots of $100,000 buckets, and it's going to take everybody in this room doing a mindset change.
We just go out and we buy brand new Macintoshes and brand new hard disks for everybody, and it's not at all clear. I don't think we're getting great deals on that stuff. We're not scrounging.
Well, we're not the Mac owners bring their Mac from home.
We're not. I mean, we used to find people to get us really good employee discounts on things and everything else, and we stopped nickel and diming for that stuff, and it all adds up.
And I think the other thing is we signal deep pockets out there. Every vendor that comes to us, every person that comes to us for recruiting, everything, they expect these $20, $30 million behind us, and it isn't there, and it's not going to be there.
So you can kick yourself in the butt, but I guess now's the time to change. And one of the things that I don't see is, I don't see it myself, I don't see it in enough of the rest of us, is I don't see that startup hustle. In other words, if we zoom out at the big picture, it would be a shame to have lost the war because we won a few battles. And I sort of feel like I and some of the rest of us are concentrating too much on the smaller battles. And we're not keeping the war in perspective. And the war is called survival. The war is called not run out of money until we get our product on the market.
Steve Jobs had built a major company by the time he was 28. According to some, he had even created the personal computer industry. In any event, he was a wealthy man and was acknowledged as a master entrepreneur. What is it that drives him at age 31 to begin all over again? Part of the answer seems to be his need to feel that he is contributing to history.
I felt it the first time when I visited a school. It was like had third and fourth graders classroom one time, and they had a whole classroom full of Apple IIs, and I spent a few hours there, and I saw these third and fourth graders growing up completely different than I grew up because of this machine. And what hit me about it was that here was this machine that very few people designed, about 4 in the case of the Apple II. And then they gave it to some people that didn't know how to design it, but they knew how to make it, to manufacture it. They could make a whole bunch of them. They gave it to some people that didn't know how to design it or manufacture it, but they knew how to distribute it. And they gave it to some people that didn't know how to design it or manufacture it or distribute it, but they knew how to write software for it. And gradually this sort of inverse pyramid grew. And when it finally got into the hands of a lot of people, it blossomed out of this tiny little seed. And it seemed like an incredible amount of leverage. And it all started with just an idea. And here was this idea taken through all of these stages, resulting in a classroom full of kids growing up with some insights and some fundamentally different experiences, which I thought might be very beneficial to their lives because of this germ of an idea a few years ago. And that's an incredible feeling, to know that you had something to do with it, A, and B, to know it can be done, to know that you can plant something in the world and it'll grow and change the world ever so slightly.
Whether Next can be a viable business is something only time will tell. But Steve Jobs' passionate commitment to his vision is clear, and his certainty that it can be achieved and is worth achieving is a conviction to be observed in all successful entrepreneurs. Only 5 years ago, Mitchell Caper was putting together his own infant organization in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Lotus Development Corporation. His purpose was to develop and market a superior spreadsheet program for personal computers. He called his new product Lotus 123, and it became almost overnight the best-selling software program on the market.